You split it up evenly. You go, you get 1 trillion, you get 1 trillion, okay? Now, when you guys both you say, oh, I got $1 trillion in assets now, I can lend it out. Do you happen to know how much you can lend out if you have $1 trillion in assets?
Depends on the ratio.
Yeah. It's called the fractional reserve ratio, right? Okay. What was the fractional reserve ratio you learned in school? 10%.
Yes.
Okay. What is it now?
I don't know the 15%.
So they're making them hold more money, right? To
Right.
be safer, right? So that the banks don't and lend out too much, right?
Yeah.
It's zero.
Oh, zero.
Zero. So infinity. So they can. So now we're gonna take JP. Like we're gonna take Bank of Jaden, and I'm gonna say Jaden. So you're Bank of Jaden. You're gonna go, hey, I got $1 trillion. I'm gonna lend it all out. So instead of keeping 100 million or whatever, 100 billion, I'm just gonna lend it all out. You lend it out to the entire economy, buy houses with it, open businesses with it. It circulates through the economy, but the dollars are still there, and then they go back into the bank. So now all of a sudden you just made $1 trillion, and then it goes back into your coffers again, or all the coffers of the banks. Now how much more can you lend?
As much as I got back.
Yeah, you just keep lending the same $1 trillion
Over and
over and over again. So that money supply went from $1 trillion to infinity and beyond. But if you had a fractional reserve ratio of 10, then you couldn't do that. So you can, if you want to stimulate the economy, it's a wonderful tool.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say it's not a thing that will work. But if it's done in the wrong way, a lot of bad things can happen. Okay? And if there's not parties that are willing and able and wanting to do this, then me as the Fed can't do anything. So this is the situation that's happening right now, which is, hey, I'm Jerome Powell. I'm the head of the Fed. I want to keep using my money printer, so because we have economic damage forever, and we want to save you guys. But technically, I just want to increase my balance sheet and all my assets, because these rich people behind me that we can't tell you where they are, we're gonna end up. They really want to lend you money. You hear it all the time in Congress. They're like, dude, we can't just keep kicking the can down the road. U.S. debt we're gonna become insolvent. We're gonna be slaves. We're just gonna have to default on this debt sooner or later. So me as the Fed goes, it's okay, don't worry about it, just pay us back. You as the Congress, you're like, I don't want to lend. Like, you're gonna kill us. So it's basically like racking up credit card debt and saying, I just can't spend anymore. If I do anymore, I can't pay monthly payment, I'm screwed. Okay? Then I say, okay, well, Fed, you know what? I'm gonna go directly to the banks instead. Go, hey, banks, my other tool other than printing money and giving to you, which is called quantitative easing, is called changing interest rates. Okay? So I say, hey, I'm gonna, normally interest rates are, let's say 5%. I'm gonna lend you as much money as you want at 0%. It's free money. You want it? You want it? Because right now it's free money, so I'm basically 0%. The banks, they're like, we don't really want it actually, because if we start lending it out and the market crashes and the bubble bursts, we're effed. So the Fed has two parties that don't want to cooperate right now, and then they're stuck. So you're at this point where you're like, what's happening? So this is current events almost. So now, like, Biden's promised this, and he's definitely gonna probably do something, and it's probably gonna happen. You know, but think about where this debt goes. Where does it go? It goes into the U.S. debt, right? And you never worry about it because it's like $27 trillion. You know how much 27 trillion? You know how much 1 trillion is?
Isn't it like 10,000? I don't know. It's a very, very harsh ratio.
It's a million millions.
Yeah.
A million millions. It's mind-boggling. And you know what the percentage of it is actually going to you as people? Very, very small. It's like 600 billion or whatever out of that whole amount. So most of it's going towards the super companies, the ones that shouldn't even be saved at this point.
Yeah.
It goes to some municipalities and cities, which are sort of important, those type of things. But most of it gets funneled into the rich. And who gets left out? Not all people, because the poor actually make more money.
Yeah.
It's your families, the middle class and the upper middle class. Okay? So you guys are getting squeezed, all right? Now that you understand the mechanisms behind our monetary system, let me show you something. You ever have a grandma or a grandpa that's like, hey, I remember when I was like a kid and then your movie used to be a nickel.
Yes.
Soda pop used to be a penny, right? What happened? Inflation, okay? The Federal Reserve was created in 1913. What, $100 back then, if you took $100 now and you rewound time and you put it back then, how much is that same $100 worth back then?
Like double.
Double?
Double,
Okay.
double.
Or half, really, right? It's worth half the value, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 3%. So that $1 is worth 3 cents. So that $1 originally back in 1913 could have bought you probably a date with a movie, with a vacation afterwards, around the world, come home, and that's probably what it is. But now that 3 cents gets you 3 sodas. Okay? This is the value of our dollar as soon as we created the Federal Reserve. Before that, it was dollar pretty much the whole time because it's backed by gold. But this is what it's worth now. Now, your parents, everyone adult-wise, they always wonder why they never have enough money. There's 2 taxes. There's more than 2 taxes, but there's 2 main taxes. One, you know, which is what?
Income tax.
Income tax. The other one is an invisible tax, and it's called inflation. Okay? There's also like property tax, retail sales tax, but ultimately, you get taxed, all right? So, in 1944, I'm just gonna give you a little more scope as far as, we're gonna move a little bit away from the monetary system and go into just global ideas, which is, 1944 was around World War II, right? Who didn't get annihilated in World War II? What country? Us. When everybody's fighting and everything and they need supplies, who do they call? Us. Who became the wealthiest superpower in the world within years? Us. So when towards the very end, when they realized that all the other countries are like, oh my God, we can't even trade with each other. We have no goods. Our currency's all jacked up. No one wants our currency either. We already gave it all to the United States, all the gold, everything, because everything outflowed from those countries into America. Now all of a sudden, America had all the wealth. And then they came up with this thing called the Bretton Woods Agreement. You ever hear of that? I don't know. But Bretton Woods, it changed the history of the United States forever, and that's what built our country. We got anointed the world reserve currency. So instead of holding gold or whatever, all the countries had to hold was a US dollar. Okay? So just think about it. That's pretty cool. Like, I'm the originator of all money. That's awesome, man. Now, the cool thing before was that the gold was pegged to the dollar. So if I go, hey, you know, until 1971, you can actually go in and like trade money for gold, and it's pegged to gold, so you knew exactly how much gold you would get. So that's what the countries from around the world said. Hey, we already gave you your gold, so when we want our gold back, we can just give you US dollars back. But the Federal Reserve and the US government, you know, when you have absolute power creates absolute corruption. When you have all the power and you don't have any checks and balances, and you go, ooh, I'd like to print a little bit more money because we're a little short this fiscal year. We spent a little bit too much on planes. They'll print a little bit. And then finally, like in the 70s, like early 70s, 60s, like late 60s, a lot of the countries started going, this doesn't really make sense, man. It's like, it seems like you are having more dollars than gold. So France is one of the first countries to go, hey, here's your dollars. Can I have my gold back?
Right.
And then the US says, sure. And then all of a sudden, all these other countries started doing it.